Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Death's Hangover. So we made it through the second level and we only have one life though left, so it'll take us... The hope here is that by entering this area, we can re-enter this area if I die and I don't have to go back and play the lower sections the second time. Although inherently, if progress is still saved, going back and doing the lower sections to collect more souls wouldn't be a problem, and I have 2 lost souls already collected, so those should be continues anyways, so we should be alright, hopefully. My bigger concern though is that this game may just get incredibly crazy and difficult, where even holding the A button to slow down things is not going to actually help anyway. So the objectives, which often aren't objectives, a human sacrifice, so that's what the villagers in the dungeon were for. Okay, so you have humans we could hit, which would be kind of dangerous. They respawn. And then we've got coins we can collect, but mostly the coins are just going to give us points. I would need another 5,000 points to get an extra life, which it does seem like there's room here for trying to run up the points to get some extra lives. These pervert monks make me look like a good guy. Better be careful, boys. Yep. So it seems like the story is going to get even more edgelordy. Right. Right. So we have a fireball, which now we don't have a fireball. There's a problem here on the controls. I need a trigger button to fire. Okay, and so we've died. We can spin the wheel. We can walk to the exit. We can't go over here. So we'll spin the wheel with a lost soul, and I assume we're getting blue and 1 up. Interesting. So you get a bonus and you get a 1 up. Retry the level. Now we have 4 lives. Now to the next level. So these punks can use fireballs, better use some cover to avoid them. Alright. What I want to do is see if I could go to the settings, but it seems like I would have to just quit the whole game, and I would hate to potentially lose progress by quitting the whole game. But yeah. This is also going to put me in a weird position, so let's just do this and go back to the main menu. There is no button here. Customization. Yeah. Let's see. So, yeah, you can redefine keys on you can redefine keys, I guess, on the keyboard, but you can't map buttons on the controller. And there's a pretty obvious ability here Like when you have an Xbox controller, you have a right bump, right trigger, left trigger. I would like to be able to use some of those or remap some of those buttons to the X button. Interesting. I guess this is just some middle loading screen where you might be able to select different modes or different save points. It seems like that was kind of unnecessary. That did bring us back to the same place, but yeah. Glue seems to just be on always, and I guess probably if I pressed Y I might be able to turn it off, although frankly glue isn't a terrible thought to just always have the ball stick to the paddle. Lost Soul, you should know the routine by now. So I'm going to switch here. There really isn't a lot of reason to just stay on these levels once you get the Lost Souls. These monks are trying to summon something. Multi-ball. Super glue. You are in this weird position though where like it would be kind of difficult to do both. Yeah. You basically have to smash the A button to shoot the little darts. Or you have to be fairly confident that the ball is not anywhere near you. I think this is a great example of where an Arkanoid game can start to fall apart in that you need just that absolute right angle and a decent amount of luck to hit your target. And you can definitely hear in the sound effects that it is just repeating the same sound effects over and over again a little too often. It definitely makes it sound like a fighter game, a cheap fighting game, frankly. I hope you're good at dodging fireballs. You can't die on me yet. This is definitely not going to be the smoothest of experiences to be shown off, but this is definitely the way to go through it. Those damn monks and their stupid fireballs. I want to be a pervert monk too. You're such an idiot, Bob. So I wonder what those guys are summoning. Or maybe it's a giant sexy lady. Sure it is, Bob, you moron. What the hell is that thing? Looks like it might be a giant sexy lady. No, I don't know what that thing is either. Okay. Whoops. Gotta keep your eyes on too many things. This is probably the kind of game that really highlights how, regardless of how good you think you are at multitasking, you throw enough enemies at you, you shoot enough projectiles at a player, and it just becomes really difficult to pay attention. See, I don't know if I'm supposed to be hitting the monks or if I was supposed to be hitting the face. But yeah. So I imagine the black circle here means you actually didn't cheat death. Now the game is somewhat kind here in that it's not forcing you to start from the beginning with a boss with full health and resetting things, but man, that lightning is pretty deadly. So if this is what's to come, I do question certainly whether we are going to struggle to beat this game, although we are not that far from the ending. I also still heavily suspect that this key, if you found the key somewhere in the level, this would get you to a bonus level, and I would suspect the key comes from defeating a lot more enemies in the previous level. Good job, you sent that reward back to whatever dimension it came from onto the next level, next area. And here you have the character on the left reading a book upside down that says either book or boobs. It almost seems like it just says bool, B-O-O-L, and they're reading it upside down. Now we're in a weird position though. We went through this level so fast that we're only about halfway through an episode, so I guess we'll just go through the next level too. It may be a case that the levels just get somewhat quicker if you're, but also I just think it is a case of randomness too, if you get lucky or not. This layout should be similar to the sewers, no problem then. So now we're starting to see some repetition in the layout. Variations on the theme. So now I've broken every lamp in this level. Does that set me up for something, I wonder? So a lot of times though, when it even if you're slowing things down, you still really can't you still really can't collect the item and avoid death at the same time. And that was true in Arkanoid also, and perhaps that's a level of polish that a modern game should try to address more, is that you should have just points collected when you break a thing instead of points coming down the screen to have to be touched to be collected. Looks like a lever, you better hit it then, you more. Okay. So it does seem to me like now we're getting more difficult requirements to get through a level. I have no idea what Ghost does. We're not really even that close to getting another life. So staying in a life in an area like this is really just dangerous for no reason. I suspect there might have been a key in that barrel on the top left, and that would explain where keys are. Rats are everywhere. Dracula needs to clean more often. We lost our ghost ability before I could figure out what the ghost ability did for me. So this is just going to come down to how many balls can we keep with us to the next level. And can we get the angle correctly? Here. On one hand, if we try to get more of a vertical shot, we'll get it in the doorway. If we get a more horizontal shot, we'll get potentially... Well, interesting. Now I have a second multi-ball, which definitely makes me wonder, can we have like 4 or 5 multi-balls? Seems like everyone probably is helpful, though, because it's probably giving me points at the very least. We have an upgraded weapon, which now we know that there are upgraded weapons. But this layout is really rough. I don't think I can flip the switch again. Interesting. Another lost soul captured. I mean, free it quickly. So we have like 5 balls here. So if I shoot it this way, it's probably not going to work. So we missed the lost soul, but we continued to keep the balls with us. Although, is it really worth it to keep the balls with us? And then he says, even you two idiots can figure this puzzle out. I wouldn't really argue that this is the kind of game where puzzles would be the best descriptor of what you're going for, what the levels would be. This is also a game, despite the fact that the water here is spinning the balls in weird ways, that probably plays a lot easier with a mouse. It's undeniable that there's just a much higher amount of input you can do on a mouse compared to a controller, but I do expect most games that have mouse input to have also kind of a laid-back experience with controller if they support controllers. There are a lot of games that don't follow that rule, certainly, though. You're not going to play a highly competitive first-person shooter with a controller and do as well than compared to mouse and keyboard. It's just not going to happen. But for an Orknoid game, I would like to be able to slow down everything here even more than just holding down the A button. I kind of wish there was some way to reduce the speed by about 3/4 to a half speed. Don't let the stinky rats get in your way, boys. So in this case, you should just wait. Wait until 15 rats spawn, and then, or wait until the ball shows up with the multi-ball, and you'll just hit more rats that way. And that might be somewhat dangerous, I guess. I guess I see a reason why you wouldn't want to wait. Is that they would get too close. I also had a special ability there, so I could have shot the rats. Yeah, it seems like we're gonna lose fairly quickly if I die one more time. Those silly levers can't fool a genius like me. You're the best, Andy. I know I am. We'll be free in no time. Then I can deal with death. Oh, I know that, Loeb. You can bet there's another monster ahead. I'll beat it up all by myself. Andy, wait for me. A water monster, huh? Should be harder than the last boss you faced. Okay. So, the movement here is to avoid fireballs myself and then just hit it. And then we'll just hold down the A button to slowly catch it. That was arguably too easy. And this time there isn't a door over here, so if there was a secret, it must have been somewhere else. And so now we have another victory animation. Victory, you took that nasty weed out nicely, girls. On to the next area. And here you can see the character on the right just chewing on like a vine, and the character on the left is being strangled by a vine or tentacle or whatever. So you're getting slight variations on the same picture, but clearly the creator of this game, or the animator of these pictures, was trying. I don't think I really love the animation style here. I think it's kind of rough, kind of bad, unfortunately, but it is at least applaudable to try. Inherently, I feel like compared to like Japanese kids, I think Western kids are just not encouraged to draw at all in their youth. You're maybe told to draw a picture in kindergarten, maybe once a week at most, whereas the amount of practice to draw really needs to be just every day, over and over again, photo referencing as you're learning to draw, where you look at other people's drawings and copy it, and you just get a very different level of quality. You definitely get a very different style too, in which Japanese animators, when they grow up, having had a childhood of being more encouraged to draw, have a different anime style to the way they draw things, but the quality is also very different here. This exact same style could just be done better with a little bit more detail, a little bit more shading. It is coming off very much like this is trying to look like a old animation that you would have seen in an old game in the 90s, where I just don't think that's the way to go. You can have a limited color palette, but you probably should have a much higher level of actual shading, and probably more colors that are just variations on the same browns. Here, like if you look at the legs on the character on the left there, she has 3 shades of brown for shading on her legs, and you probably would just want more shades of browns, 6, 7, 8, and certainly you would just use like a Photoshop smudge tool and brush tools to achieve that. Or and then if you look at like the feet, the toes and the feet are not particularly well animated. And the face proportions of the character on the left and the head proportions anatomically are a little too big compared to the arms of the character. But yeah, the other thing certainly to point out though is if this really is an indie game only made by one person, which is what the credits say, you do run into this situation sometimes where you have somebody who's good at programming, which I'd say a decent amount of programming has been shown so far. I'm not seeing any bugs or crashes or weirdness. The only real weirdness was with the controller disconnecting, which might be my fault, because I alt-tabbed out of the game. So it's not really something that should be expected. Theoretically, one person should not be able to make a video game that is good, because the logical minded programmer is highly, highly unlikely to also be capable of being the creative minded animator or artist. And that is why you so often see somebody try to make a game using creative arts from an asset store or from a different animator. Video games inherently kind of need to be more of a collaborative effort, and the idea of a single creator is not something to really strive for or something that's likely to happen. You also run into the opposite situation sometimes in games, where you'll have an animator who is particularly good, or a writer who is particularly good, or at least thinks they're particularly good, and then they'll try to make their creative work into an interactive video game for poor reasons, I would say. And very often what you'll see in that case is you'll have a very pretty looking game that plays awfully, or just doesn't understand the concepts of making a video game in the first place, or you'll run into a well-written visual novel style game that really doesn't have any interactivity to it. A kinetic visual novel, for instance, where there are no dialogue choices. And even if you're making a visual novel with dialogue choices, you're still not really making a very interactive experience, where you're just going up and down a list of responses. However, there's such a historical reason, and there are so many visual novels that exist, it would be really unfair now to retroactively claim visual novels aren't video games because they are minimally interactive. But there is certainly a significant number of people who would never sit through a visual novel and do all of that reading because it's not interactive enough. Whereas every other video game to exist really is much higher in the level of interactivity. Even a clicker is more interactive than most visual novels, where you're just mindlessly clicking a game. Anyways, I don't want to go on too long, so that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.